Welcome to This Commerce Life. We are an unscripted podcast dedicated to small businesses and entrepreneurs in the retail and consumer packaged goods space in Canada and the United States.
I am Phil Chang, co-host and co-founder.
And I'm Kenny Vanucci, co-host and co-founder of This Commerce Life.
Our love is the journey to retail, and our passion is sharing that with you every week.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Good. Oh, you've already got recording and all that shit going on. Okay.
I actually figured out how to set so that it automatically records.
Oh, even more better.
Which is kind of a big deal, right? Because we've never been able to figure out how to do that. So one of the stresses is always like, oh crap, like if we're not, if neither of us are at a laptop, right? So how do we do that? So yeah.
Well, it never works, right?
Yeah.
I think I let Tareq in. I think
Hello
I did.
there.
Hi.
Good morning.
Hi, good morning.
How are you?
How are you?
Very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm just waking up. My alarm went 5 minutes ago. So I got a quick bucket of coffee.
Right
a
on.
couple sweets, and I'm ready to go.
Right on. What is it? 7 a.m. Your time?
It's 7 in Vancouver.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Right on.
I mean, it's not late, but
Yeah.
for me, it's a little on the early side. I don't usually get up till about 7:30, 8 o'clock. But
Okay. Right on.
for you, my friend, whatever, no problem.
That's right. Yes. So I give you a good reason there to be rising up and early.
Oh,
Thank you very much both
100%.
for the invite again. This is
100%.
really exciting.
Yeah, no, to chat with you, I would chat with you. I'd even do 6 o'clock for you. How's that?
Thank you very much.
Wow.
That means a lot. Yeah. Thank
Listen,
you.
Tareq, he doesn't do that very often.
Good to know.
He doesn't offer
Okay.
that very often. So that's kind of a big deal, actually. So yeah.
No, I wanted to say hi to you at the show. What was it? The food tech? What did we do? Well, you had
Food Pro.
Yeah, Food Pro. But you had to bolt pretty quick. Your speech was amazing. Like it really was. I mean, you could tell the audience was just nobody was saying anything. They're just dead silent, just listening.
That's
so
right.
it was fascinating. But I wanted a chance to say hi to you. But you were, I think, on a plane pretty much right away. So
That's right. Yeah, that's amazing. So you were there, Kenny. That's
No.
awesome. I hear.
Yeah.
you were.
Kenny
You were
was
not
there.
both. Yeah. Okay. So
I was
you were
there
not
for
both there. Yeah. It was actually one of my favorite conferences that I've attended this year so far. Afterwards, I needed to run, but still, people were like catching up with me on the stairs as I was going down. It was magical. It was really, really magical. And
I think people are just fascinated by you and the story. I mean, a lot of it, the story is obviously pretty amazing, and we'll get into it a little bit today. We don't have to do whatever you want. It's your podcast today, so whatever you want to talk about, we're going to talk about. But the story is absolutely fascinating, and then you are also, you're a very intriguing person, but you also have this. There's something about you, an aura about you, this thing about you that you seem very, very warm and somebody that you could really talk to if you wanted to. So I think if people were stopping you, it's because of that. I think you just have that's something about you that people, I think, just gravitate toward it because I think they just want to talk to you. I think you have this something about you that just makes people want to do that, I think.
Yeah. I hope I'm a magnet to good people. I mean, everyone in the circle around me is pretty much personable and approachable, accessible, and this has always been, the kind of the best feature to have when you are delivering a message. That is actually the thing that everyone should be celebrating, like peace. When I talk about peace, I have to be, a people person, and I am a people person. Because at the end of the day, what I'm talking about actually is very relevant to every human being on the planet, and chocolate as well, because it's also a people value and a people product. So it doesn't hurt. So that's why I think it has worked, and I'm genuinely, the best times of my life are those when I spend them on stages speaking to folks.
Yeah.
When you talk to a singer or performer or or a musician, and you ask them what's their favorite time, a lot of them will tell you when they are on their stages and living their best time. But for me, on a different level, it is when really I look in people's eyes and I see them reacting to my own story and my own journey live. So something that I have missed over the past few years during COVID is when I was doing this behind screens, and I missed that element, is, hearing the claps in the rooms or the laughs when everyone laughs at the same time, instead of talking to a black screen. I'm feeling a little bit awkward about it. So the shared emotion in the room is so contagious. So when everyone is laughing at the same time, or cheering them at the same time, or listening to the same thing and reacting to it in a very similar way, I think that's the biggest motivation for me to do this more and more. And at the end of the day, I mean, what I want people to know firsthand is, listen, you probably would see my face on LinkedIn or somewhere on the internet, or probably watch our movie, but you would really never connect to the real story unless you're sitting in a room, no distractions. I mean, people would have access to their phones, but I didn't see anyone
if they were, my friend, it was to take pictures,
exactly,
or something like that. But it was truly,
it was amazing.
Yeah, it really was. I mean, it's a God-given gift, though. I think you can't discount it. I think you have to appreciate that not everybody can deliver a message. Not everybody can do it. So it's not something I think some of it is given to you from a different place. It's not everybody can do it. And I think one of the things I was going to ask you, do you want to do a quick intro, Phil? Should I?
Yeah, we should do an intro. The only thing I wanted to add before we get to the intro, I think, for the two of us is just, the podcast, we reach a lot of people similar like you, but it is weird. That's the weirdest part, I think, for me, on the podcast, is we don't get reactions right away, right? Like, we get them well after the fact. And it's I think both Kenny and I don't know, Kenny, if I can speak for you, you'll say something different, but I just think for us, like, we're fairly big extroverts. We love people. We love the, kind of like having people around us. And so, so not getting reactions right away is weird. And then it's even weirder because both of us are fairly easily embarrassed when it comes to, like, people talking about us after the fact. So when people come up and say, "Oh, we listened to the podcast," it's weird for us, right? So all of that, it's a little bit different. But good for you. I think you're doing some really cool things, and Kenny couldn't stop talking about you after Food Pro. So yeah, he couldn't stop talking about you before, after the last time we talked about you, and then after seeing you at Food Pro.
Okay, so I maybe fanned out a little bit on the first time.
A lot of it. A lot of it. But it's okay. But it's okay, Kenny. It's okay.
You know what, Tareq? That's Phil's problem. You know why? Because if he had seen the movie like I told him to,
yes,
like, prior to talk, then he would have been at a whole different appreciation of why I was excited. So Phil putting zero effort was the real problem on that one.
All right. Let's do an intro so everybody knows who we're talking to, and then let's go. I feel like we want to get as much as Tareq's story as we can get.
Yeah. So Tareq Hadhad's on our show today. The company, it is called Peace by Chocolate, right? Is that the actual
company? Yes, it is.
Because I worry sometimes I get the movie and not the.
Yes, that's right. It is called Peace by Chocolate. Yeah.
Okay. If you haven't seen the movie, you should watch the movie. It's very sweet. It's just a really nice story. I hope it's a typical. I hope it's still sort of a typical Canadian story of immigrants coming to Canada. These came with very different circumstances. Like my dad came because he wanted to come. I think Phil's parents came because they wanted to come. My mother's grandparents came because they had to come. They were fleeing Russia at the end of the 18th century, 1800s, early 1900s. This family came because they had to get out of, the shit show in Syria. Like, Syria was a little bit of a mess at the time. So these people came for a different life. And I'm hoping that we don't have to do the whole story. You can do whatever you want. You can talk about whatever you want to talk about. I can listen to your story 500,000 times. So quite frankly, you can do it all day if you wanted to. But I hope it's a true Canadian story where it's really about this country allows people to come, and we hopefully embrace for the most part, and we really want people to do well when they come here. So I was really compelled. I really enjoyed talking to you or listening to you, by the way. I really did. I really, really enjoy it. So Tareq Hadhad's on our show. Next 45 minutes, an hour, my friend, is yours to talk about whatever you want to talk about. But I wanted to ask you one thing. So, because before we
go ahead, yeah, absolutely. I want it to be a conversation. I mean, I'm gonna talk to you probably a little bit about to those who have never heard about the story. I'm gonna just do like an intro about the story and what we are doing now, and etc. But please go ahead with your question. Yeah.
So, your folks were your folks like you in the sense that when I hear the story, your mom sounded like very much like a saintly person, like a wonderful woman, right? Just really that person.
My mother is the best mother.
It sounds like it.
Yeah.
And your father sounds like, even again from the movie, it's always an adaptation, but because you guys were involved, I'm assuming it's pretty accurate. You know how I felt about you in the movie. I think you could be a little nicer to your dad, but that's okay. We got lost. But they do seem like. Do you get how much of you is them? Because I wonder if would your dad be able to do it, go on stage like that? Would your mom? Because I'm always curious, how different we can be from our parents, and yet how similar we can be to our parents.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. We are quite a different family from the typical perspective of a family, because I have different perspectives about immigration than my parents, and what immigration meant to me is actually quite different than what it meant to my father and to my mother. What it meant to me was, a fresh start. I was a young man. I'm still a young man, but I was very young when I came to Canada, like in 2015. I was 23 actually when I came.
Oh, okay. Well, you really are.
Yeah.
And that's 2015?
2015, yeah.
And you're like a baby still.
I know. Yeah.
Oh my God, I didn't know you were that young.
Yeah. So that's why for my parents, my father was in his late 50s. My mother was as well. So they were for them, immigration to Canada was like a nice phase of their life, right?
Right.
For me, it is my life forever. For me, it is what I have to live for the next decades and decades, for the rest of my life until I die. And it is quite important to mention that the decision to emigrate was actually not my parents' choice in the beginning. My father and my mother, they were not the ones who actually applied to come to Canada. I applied to come by myself, and then the family was invited because of my application. So then I felt double the pressure. I'm the one who brought everyone here.
Yeah,
exactly. And I made it here, and then my family, my parents followed me afterwards. I mean, we were on the same application, but I had to come first because of how many seats were available on the flight back in 2015. I was on the third flight that brought Syrians to Canada. And they were just rearranging flights, and I was just lucky to be able to have been able to come here. But for my parents, when they arrived 3 weeks later, for them, it is just one nice chapter in their life to land in a new country and learn a new language at that time, and get adjusted and pick up on the Looney Tooney double concept, and pick up all the Canadian slangs and what it means really to live in one of the most beautiful places in the world, but also very remotely from a big transition point of view to what they have been living in Syria and where they have lived in their entire lives before coming here. So it's very much a different perspective in terms of what it meant to them versus what it was for me. And integration was very different as well, because for them, integration meant just inviting a couple of neighbors at the bar on the barbecue, and also do the Syrian recipes in a different way. So for them, integration meant food all the time. Anytime you talk to them about integration, it's food. How do you integrate? Okay, let's just go to a potluck. We will make our kibbeh or yabra yalanji, all of those delicious Syrian dishes. We'll take them to the community. and then they're going to enjoy them. They're going to become they're going to invite us to become a part of their life, or tell us how things work, or teach us on the system. That's what integration meant for them. And it actually works quite well, because my mother makes delicious food, and my father is also a chocoholic, and he's a massive chocolatier. So it was for them actually. How do you open the hearts of the local community when you give them 3 pieces of chocolate, or kibbeh, or all of those delicious meals? For me, it was about I want to make an impact, and I really want that impact to be as large as it can be, because listen, we have lost everything already, so we have already hit the rock bottom, and the only way for us is to go up. Like, there's no more rock bottom to hit, right? When you are a refugee, you're already in the rock bottom. Like, you have lost everything. You have lost your friends. You have lost your connections. You can't go back and rebuild. Your house is gone. Your future is gone. In that stage of life. So the only way for you to think about the next day is just to have faith, which is very important, and to have hope that tomorrow is going to be better than today. And then you can work on adjusting your life down the road. So actually what happened to me was the transition to what we have lived through. But also I was very lucky that we were surrounded by so much love and so much warmth since the moment that we landed in this country. It is very important. And I have to say this, especially as we are living in July 2024, when the conversation about immigration in this country has not shifted entirely, but there's a lot of noise out there in the country today about with the value of immigration, and our own issues, and people are just mixing everything together, and blaming people who are not responsible for the things that they call miseries in their life. If someone is fired of their job, they'll be like blaming someone who just landed here.
Right.
Well, not of a fault of their own. They have the right amount of skills to fill that job. But I believe that we, as in the human nature, we always tend to blame those that we don't know, that the people that they don't share a lot with us, that we think they don't share a lot with us. And that's why the conversation now about immigration in this country, it has to be focused more and more on the human level, to think about those who are leaving everything behind. Leaving everything behind, having the audacity to leave everything behind, or being forced to leave everything behind. Like in your story as well, Kenny, some of your family members, they wanted to come here. Some of them, they were forced to come here.
But they had no choice, right?
And no choice. Yeah, exactly. So it's actually similar to mine. But I really hope we can just bring back compassion and empathy in the conversation when we talk about immigration, and think about immigrants not as numbers to fulfill targets. In Canada, we say, we are targeting 490,000 newcomers or 500,000 a year. And it becomes like, data. They become numbers.
The numbers game.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, did we hit our target?
And it shouldn't be a numbers game.
And because I'm an entrepreneur, so when I look at my balance sheet and see dollar signs, and when I look at the immigration targets or these charts that IRCC or the country would publish, Statistics Canada, and sometimes I feel really sorry, because when you hear about, we are welcoming 500,000 people into the country, do we have infrastructure for them? Are we providing the right support nowadays to them? The country is living post-COVID days and all of this. And the answer is Canada is one of the wealthiest nations on the planet, and the second largest country in the world. And my motto has always been that no one comes here to take, everyone comes here to contribute and give back. At the same time, no one comes here empty. So as a country, we have something missing, which is, are we recognizing all of these incredible folks who are choosing Canada to be their adopted nation, to be their adopted country? Out of all the countries in the world, they are choosing to come here and become a part of the Canadian fabric. And to me, Canadians are born, like my favorite actually thing that has been said about Canada is that Canadians are born everywhere. It just takes them a little bit to get here.
Yeah.
So that's the beauty of this country, is that we attract big dreamers, and those who take on the immigration journey can do anything in life. And that's why immigrants are one group of the most resilient people on the planet, is because they have already left everything behind, and they were willing and have the courage to start from scratch and to start building their lives again. So, the generational difference between me and my parents is actually based on the fact that I understood immigration as a way to change the generational life for the family forever. And the way that I took it as well, which is very important to any newcomer who would be listening to me, is that I did not just say, "Oh, I'm now Canadian," "Oh, probably I'm just Syrian. I don't want to become a Canadian." I took the best out of my culture, and then I took the best out of the Canadian culture of what I found. I put them together, and then I came up with this beautiful mutation of the things that make my life and my family's life a lot easier to integrate. But at the same time, we don't lose our roots. We don't lose our identities. We don't lose the places that we came from. So I think it worked within my family because it would have been a lot more difficult for them to get bubbled into the folks who speak the same language. And that's what I find very difficult for many immigrant communities in the country, is there tends to be like bubbles. If you speak Arabic, you would tend to go to communities or live in neighborhoods where you have your neighbors speak the same language. You celebrate Ramadan or Eid at the same time. You go to the Arabic food place and you get your supplies from there. In fact, our journey in Anaganesh has taught us something so valuable, is that you don't need to look like everyone else to be able to integrate. Your uniqueness is so much worthy to actually, your uniqueness and your difference in the community is going to add to your success, because everyone will come and support you. As newcomers, we found ourselves in the community of Anaganesh, a town of 5,000 people, that everyone was coming and knocking on our doors, and really they were offering us support. So we were lucky from that point of view, but we were also working very hard to earn it. I think integration is earned. People have to work hard for it. They have to build connections, and they have to network. I really hope that we as a country can continue to provide big dreamers from around the world who are landing on our shores or at our airports with opportunities to follow their dreams, to become who they wanted to be, without building barriers and blocks on the road to their success, without telling them they're not enough, to fill a job that they have been doing 20 years in their home country. Yeah. And they can do it here. Nurses who have been working 25, 30 years.
Dentists,
doctors. Exactly. Yeah. So I really hope as a country we can find a solution to that. And from my own platform, I'm really focusing on that right now in my conversations with governments, with NGOs, a foreign credential recognition program, very much a national program, to make sure that every immigrant, no matter whether they are in a big city or a small town, they have the exact similar chance of success. I think in Canada, one of the beauties in Canada is, your postal code doesn't determine the level of attention you will get from your local government, provincial government, federal government. We are all equal. And I think we have to continue to do this way. We are not perfect, but I hope that we can do more.
I think the one thing, Tareq, I want to make sure that we add, right, is I think integration, it's an obligation of immigrants when they come here to try and assimilate to the community. But as Canadians, right, like I'm a Canadian-born Chinese, the product of different from both of your sets of parents, where they came here voluntarily, but they still came here. They worked hard to integrate themselves in the community. And the community I live in now, I've got, kind of true blue Italians on one side. I've got Czechs who live across the street. I've got Nigerians who live 3 doors down. Some of my best friends are Indian and Pakistani. Do you know what I mean? Like, so there's just like, it's part of the Canadian fabric to be, so Canadians who view themselves as Canadian-born Canadians, we have to work hard because, if you take the opposite approach to yours, Tareq, and we look at the numbers, the truth is Canadians, we need to find all the Canadians who are born somewhere else who just don't know that they need to be here yet. And when they get here, we have to work as hard as they do to make sure that they're integrated into. I really believe that, because I think, one, we need to show them how we live, right? Because that's why folks come here, and then we need to take the best of what they have and make it part of the way we live too, right? So I think all of those things
Absolutely.
are, you know, so I think you're spot on. I just think sometimes if you're native born here, you go after it and you go, oh, well, you know, it's on them. No, it's on all of us, right? So if they're here, it's your job to welcome them. It's your job to show them what's right and what's wrong too, right? Like the way we do things, right? Because it's important, right? Like it helps them feel welcome. It helps them to understand, and we need them as much as they need us, right? So that's the way it works, right? Like it's got to be
It's a win-win. It's a win-win. You know, I couldn't think of a better analogy, you know, than you know, many folks who wanted to restart their lives here, and they also filled the gap in or in the country. But at the same time, I think one of the most important points is to make sure we are going back to the human level first. You know, we are talking to these folks and welcoming them, not because we have you know, a job that has not been filled for a year that no one else wanted to do it. And we want people to go, you know, do the jobs that no one wants to do. That's why we need to import, or we need to, you know, to invite immigrants to come here to do the things that no one in Canada would want to ever do.
Right.
I think we should balance this, and that's why, you know, also many folks say, oh, you know, the comments on my Twitter feed and anything that I do every time I tell my story, and they say thank you very much for coming here and contribute to the system and become an active taxpayer. And you know, when I think about that, is that when we associate a dollar value of a contribution of any human being who's coming here, we are doing it wrong.
Right.
I don't believe, you know, we should focus on bringing immigrants here to increase our tax revenue in the country. You know, I believe we should be targeting immigration as a way to give opportunities to those who are dreaming, but also grow as a country as a whole in all aspects, not only financially. You know, when people talk about immigration, they only talk, the first thing they talk about is economy. Are they filling a job? Are they, you know, working? Are they working and contributing to payroll taxes? Are they paying property taxes? Are they? What is the economic, you know, impact to any immigrant? And I disagree with that analogy, because I really believe that they are first and foremost the human beings who just want to live in peace and raise their families in a country like Canada, where we have absolutely, I believe we have a great educational system. We have a great infrastructure in many aspects, although we have our own weaknesses in healthcare and housing and some of the other ways. But that shouldn't blind us from the fact that we are still one of the G7, one of the G20 countries. And we have a lot of resources that we can direct to support and keep helping those who are just simply, you know, leaving their homes, not of a fault of their own, just because they're born in the right place, but at the right time. You know, one of my favorite things that in my own story that also keep translating is one of the quotes from Nelson Mandela, is that do not judge me by my successes, judge me by how many times I fell down and got back up again. And I don't want to be judged by only the success, you know, that I've done. I really want to be judged by how many times I fell down. And because we were in a family of resilient, incredible human beings, we were able to pick ourselves back up again and get back to our lives. And it's not just in the motivational sense of things, it's actually true reality, because I believe this is what's missing right now in the world, is just talking about really human stories that can elevate us and that can be as relevant as I want. And you know what I love about this conversation, Kenny and Phil, to be honest, is that very casual, very human, very, very approachable, very simple, right? Our conversation today is just a simple way of really
this
telling.
Way should be, Tareq. It should not have to be. We both just came back from Europe, Phil and I. Phil was in Portugal and I was in Germany. We went to we were trying to get tickets for the football, but prices were out of control. But so we went to Germany to watch football in bars. I could have stayed home, but we did that anyway. So we went. But the mood in Europe toward immigration is toxic right now. It's really, really hard. And that's not just Germany.
Yeah.
That's Germany, Italy, Spain, Portugal, England. There's thing. When you come back to North America, south of us, our country included, the conversation has become toxic. And when, to your point, when you get to money and you get to the monetary and you make it all about dollars and cents, yes, everybody who comes to the country, ultimately you hope they contribute financially and economically. I get that, right? Most people who are coming in many ways to do that. They're coming from either oppression, they're coming from because they've lost everything, or they're coming because someone said, you know what, shit, if you go to that country, you know what we're doing here? If we did it there, we could do really well for ourselves financially. Because we invest into it. But it shouldn't be the kicker, because I think what people forget, not nobody, there's maybe 1 million people here who can truly call themselves Indigenous. The rest of us are not from here.
100%.
We're not. I don't care how many generations you go back. Don't tell me you're Canadian, because I'll look at you and I'll say right away, you know what? No, you're not. You are from somewhere.
That's right.
Because very few of us here are from here.
Yes, that's right.
You know what I mean? So again, this country opened up many, many, many times. Sometimes for the wrong reasons, many times for the right reasons. Sometimes we do it well. Sometimes we do it really not very well. But, you know, this country should be about that. It should be about bringing differences in. But listen, we're all the same at the end. Right? We're all people, right? You come from different backgrounds, speak different languages. Like I'm more sometimes intrigued. I'm happy that you chose Canada, thank God. But you know, I feel for your parents in a lot of ways, because I know they sort of had to leave because economically it was a problem. Like you guys lost the factory. There's a lot of other issues, but your mom and dad come in their mid-50s with no language. And when you go to a town, like, listen, the reason people come and stay within the Arabic community or the Chinese community or the Italian community or the Russian community, like my dad came to Trail because his brother was there and there was a lot of Italians. So language wasn't he's in Canada, so he needs to speak English, but he could speak at least. My great-grandparents came and they spoke Russian, but they ended up in a Russian community where everybody spoke. So it made it a little easier just for them at the beginning. And then, you know, hopefully they become Canadians quickly. But I feel for your mom and dad, because Christ almighty, you ended up in Nova Scotia. I don't know. I don't know the town very well, but I'm pretty sure the town wasn't loaded with Arabic speaking people.
So, you know, one of the funny things that happened for me is I was literally the first Syrian to arrive in Antigonish. And my mom was still back in Lebanon, was to be back in Lebanon. And I will have all of these phone calls and video calls. And then I would tell her, Mom, you know, I landed here. And she said, how many Syrian friends did you make so far? I said, what do you mean? Do you think I'm in Damascus? She said, well, there's no one else other than you who speaks Arabic?
Your mom, you're thinking, where were you taking me?
That's right. And then I told my mom, actually, no, there's only me. And she started calling me Neil Armstrong. I was the first Syrian to land in Antigonish. And she was actually quite impressed when she landed and she saw that I have like 100 friends already in town. And so that was, you know, one of the funniest things that happened in our stories. There wasn't anyone else there before us, but that did not make the journey actually harder. It made it very enjoyable and filled with the curiosity. And that's what you need when you are a new immigrant, is you always need to be curious. You always need to be looking at better ways of doing things. You always be willing to learn. You know, some of our mistakes as human beings all the time, to think that our way is the only way.
Exactly.
And everyone else is wrong. You know, that our religion is the only religion, and everyone else should be wrong. Right. And we start fighting, and we start, you know, trying to bring others down, and we start to think about trying to build on differences instead of building on the similarities. And that's what ignites conflict. So in Syria in 2010, I had thought that we figured it all out. We were a peaceful country. You know, I mean, we didn't have everything we needed as a country. There's still a lot of corruption. It was not a democracy.
Right.
But I thought we were living in peace and people understand each other. You know, there are different faiths that are being followed. People are incredibly harmonized. That's what I thought. A year later, when the fractions started to show up, it wasn't that the case at all. It was actually that there was just like some sugar coating, you know, a fake gluing between every component of society, that started to show up to the surface. And that's really what caused the war to spread like fire across the country, because it wasn't built on real harmony. It wasn't built based on real understanding. It was actually built in a fake way to tell the world, oh, listen, you don't have to even acknowledge the differences. We're all similar, etc. While in fact, people were building up all of these tension between each other. So I really hope that in Canada we will learn from history, and we will understand that really, our strength is in our differences, and work towards it, and work towards understanding it. I think that some of the most important values for us, and as very valid point there, Kenny, is if we are not indigenous on this land, we all came from somewhere. One of the exercises I do for every room I speak in, the first thing is I ask them, raise your hand if you are born in Canada, and then here it is, 50 people would raise their hand. Raise your hand if your parents were born in Canada, and then a lot of folks actually would raise their hand, and then they would raise their hand, and then they would raise their hand. And then the group that would show the most, actually, at the end is everyone who's indigenous, whose great-great-great-great-grandparents have been here tens of thousands of years, way before anybody else came. So it's really a matter of acknowledging our true history without sugarcoating it. And I have to tell you, something that not a lot of people know, because I came in 2015. So I got my visa. I headed to the airport, and I was met by the International Organization for Migration, the IOM. And they gave me this beautiful bag that has my final address on it. So the story is not what was in the bag. It was actually what they gave me afterwards. So they gave me a small booklet. It was called Discover Canada. And there was even birth to nothing mention of the true history of how Canada was built. It was like if everything really started 157 years ago or 59 years ago, and nothing else was here before then, right? And there was that narrative that, understanding the true value of a partnership between immigration and immigrants and indigenous people, it was lost. It was a lost opportunity. As an immigrant to this country, I would make friendship with everyone, but I really want to know the truth. I want to know what happened. I want to know who fought who. I want to know how this country was built. I want to know the true history of, was Canada really born in Charlottetown? The Confederation was born at the time in 1867, or was it before? Was it after? What happened that led to that? So I started questioning a lot of this when I landed here, and I believe that it was very valuable to me to learn that real history, because it was at the time when truth was very scarce, and still so far I'm still fighting for that.
It's still pretty scarce, my friend. I tell you the truth, see, I was born and raised here, right? I mean, my mom was born in Canada. My dad came from Italy when he was in his early 20s, but we really never learned. Even in school, we got this sugar-coated history too, because I think one thing I noticed from Germany, because you've traveled a little bit too, one thing I did notice from Germany, and this is my feeling of it and what I've seen, is I think they're not scared. Their history is their history, and their past is their past. And in the last century, their past has been very tumultuous and caused a lot of problems worldwide. 2 wars.
Yeah.
In essence, they brought all of us into. We all went for different reasons, and willingly, I think, in a lot of parts for different reasons. But there was a lot of problems. But they're not hiding from the mistakes they've made in the recent part. I think most of us, especially peoples that, when you colonize places, it's different. Like, you do whitewash a lot of. There's stuff we just don't want to talk about.
That's right.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, we'll talk about all the good things, but we really don't want to get into, the shit that we did, or the ugliness of it. And I think that is unfortunate. So, I mean, if you probably learned more in the short time you've been here than I learned the whole 58 years I've been in this country. And quite honestly, because your curiosity, and it's different, because you came and you wanted to learn. We just woke up, we're here, and we just life just goes, and you don't look at that. You don't think about
Absolutely.
what
Absolutely.
displaced what.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And again, it all starts for me by using the tools that I had when I came here. I was lucky to land in 2015. If I came to Canada in 2000 or 2005, before all of the beautiful mutation, like we have social media, connection with everyone else around the world. Even my family now, who are scattered in 27 countries, I can jump on a FaceTime call or a video call with them in a split of the moment. I click a button and here it is. We are all talking to one another. If I landed 15 years ago, it would have been impossible. Or even 25 years ago, it would have been worse. I need to write letters. I need to mail it to them. And I need to even try to catch the landline for them wherever they are living, in Germany or Sweden or Japan or Turkey. So it was, in a sense, that understanding our blessings is so important. And once folks, who is angry, who's anxious all the time, are those who do not know how much blessed they are. And they always think that other people have it better than them.
100%.
And that's why today what you find is polarized leaders and polarizing leaders. They exploit those fears and they turn people against one another. And they just make you feel that that person is the reason for all my problems. While in fact, I really believe that we're all striving towards the same thing. We want to live a happy life, a fulfilling life, and have safety and peace, and basically live a meaningful life as well. Because everyone that I have met, and the generalization is always bad. In any country that you go to, I haven't been to any perfect country. Canada is not perfect. Canadians are not perfect.
No.
And there is always, there's always going to be noise. But when you talk about a country like Canada, we're talking about the highest majority of people who really believe in the real value of humanity. I was actually reading a story that was written on us back from 2018, 6 years ago. And it's so true. It's so true today. It's just like a different contrast about how kindness begets kindness and how love begets love.
Exactly.
And anxiety will beget more anxiety. But at the end of the day, I believe that we are on a mission to make the world a better place. And the successful people are actually those who leave the world better than what they found.
But that should be the definition, I think, of success. It's not necessarily, the bank book or bank balance at the end of the day. I think it's, the impact. What positive impacts did you have in your neighborhood, amongst your friends, amongst business colleagues, amongst whomever? Like, I think sometimes we just live in a different world here sometimes, where money becomes the focus as opposed to other things. And there's other things, it's not always about cash. There's a lot of things that go on, the friendships you have. But you got to remember, I think, again, just coming back from Germany and just, I don't know, this trip obviously got to me. It's just a whole different look of things, because you hear it again, like you do the things that are being said today by leaders and this polarization, just so we're all clear. And all people have to do is just listen to excerpts of other leaders at different times who didn't do a lot of really good things and did a lot of really shitty things to a lot of people. The rhetoric is the same. The tones are the same. And it's always the same. It's always about being like we were before. Let's go back to the good old days, and always find somebody to blame.
That's right.
Always find somebody to blame. And typically immigrants are the easiest ones, because you know why? They came, they stole our jobs, they're on welfare, they're filling our hospital. It's all the same bullshit stories.
Yeah.
That are easy sound bites. And people, like, if you're desperate or if you're really feeling lousy for whatever reasons, that's what people grab onto. And that's a sad, sad state when we get to that level. It's just not, there's no win.
Yeah, and then the sad part about all of this is that spreading fears is a lot easier
Way easier.
Spreading love and kindness.
Well,
and
love,
that's
I
what
got to do work. I have to actually go and try to meet you and talk to you. Oh, it's much easier to just say, listen, the guy's a Syrian. Look, they were a disaster. He's probably a terrorist. He's probably the regime coming here to spy on us. That's way easier than to get to know you.
100%. Yeah, it's one word of hate actually just says way more than enough to change minds, and actually 100 words of love. And to the good part of social media I talked about, which is connectivity, still, it's being used to fuel all 100%. Of this hatred. So whenever you open what used to be good Twitter, now it is what it is.
Well, I dropped it because of that.
You find that people are it's investing. The algorithm is investing in making sure that there's always somebody who disagrees with you very heavily on the opposite side that you need to hate even more, and you need to comment, and you need to block, and then you need to build on a case against them online, that your supporters against their supporters, and then people start to even exploit all of these fears against one another. So I'm always hopeful, with everything happening. In full honesty, I'm an optimist, and I always think better about what tomorrow will bring. And to be honest, that was not the case 10 years ago. That was not the case when I was living as a refugee. That was not the case when we were just dreaming about, having a chance to for my siblings to go back to school, or have food for the next day, or etc. It was actually now we are living the dream, and what we are trying to accomplish is, the more people are believing in second chances and rebirth and renewal, the better, because everyone in this world, they suffer in different length.
For sure.
There's no one that I've met in my entire life who did not have a tragedy in their life, right? Whose parents probably are not alive, whose kid is sick in the hospital, who had to miss school because they needed to get to work early, who had to suffer to a certain degree, whether they lived in a war or not. That the extreme case in our story is that we lost everything. There are so many people who lose some stuff of their of their belongings, of their blessings, but they don't lose it all.
Right.
And I want to build on our story to make it relevant to those who have lost something in their life, and make sure they understand about optimism doesn't come from an empty place, and hope doesn't come from an empty place. And my own mission that I have made it is to talk to people about the value, how we build our peace. Our peace concept is from passion, enthusiasm, advocacy, contribution, and excellence. Those are the top 5 things that we truly believe in as human beings who were lucky because of a cab driver. Did I tell you the story of the cab driver before?
I think I heard it at.
You heard it at the conference.
Just give it to you, because it's otherwise it's just you and I. Phil unfortunately can't even get back into this call. But tell it, because I do. I think the more people hear your specific story, I think they'll start going back into their thing and think about parents, grandparents, maybe themselves, and maybe this will help us all bring it down a notch, man. It's all about people. It's all good in the hood.
That's right. Exactly. So the reason why I ended up in Canada is back in 2014, I was applying to almost 14 countries.
Yeah, you applied a lot of places, and I think we were the last pick.
I didn't apply to Canada. Like, one of the 14 countries, all the 14 countries that I applied were either Belgium, I thought, or the States, or Sweden, or France, etc., or Australia. I actually didn't think about applying to Canada, and the reason
even
for that
Australia before us.
Even Australia, yes, we were looking for some nice weather. I mean, we're at least warmer.
Oh, I feel bad for your parents. You really put them in a spot.
Warmer place, that's fine. So I applied to all of those countries. None of them even looked at our application. All of them, they just saw us as one of the millions of emails that they didn't want to read, or applications they didn't want to open. So we were basically, our entire life was depending on someone really even to consider us for an interview, and it did not happen. So the reason why I ended up in Canada finally is because of a cab driver that I met back in around Christmas time in 2014. I met that cab driver because at the time I was volunteering with the United Nations. I was volunteering with the WHO. I was using my healthcare experience to change the lives of others and to make sure I'm giving back. And I'm not sitting and complaining about how my life turned to be, because it's no one else's fault except those who started the war and those who are fighting in the war. And I didn't want to make, and wait for the solution. I was the solution. I was the solution to my own problem, which is, getting up on my feet and start looking for opportunities to give back and contribute, and not play the role of a victim, but think about my role as a victor. Right. So my role as a victor was to help as many people as I can. So that's how it happened in 2014 around Christmas time, when I finished one of my volunteering sessions at the UN. I went down in downtown Beirut in Lebanon. I was in Lebanon at the time. And I saw a cab driver. I was looking for someone to drive me to see my parents. I haven't seen them in a while. I was actually sleeping in the office for like weeks and weeks. Wow. Because I just thought to myself that the only value of my life is actually volunteering at the time. It was the only thing that I can do. It was the only thing how I can fill my time. It was the only way that I can use my skills to give back to others. So the reason I wanted to see my parents, I haven't seen them in a while. I saw that cab driver. I asked him if he can drive me to see my family, who were living in Saida, which is around 30 to 40-minute drive. Yeah. And then he said, yeah, I can drive you there. I said, the one condition I had to the cab driver is that I did not have any money on me. And I asked him if he can drive me that night and come back tomorrow the same place at the same time, and I will borrow money from my friends and pay him. The guy looked at me and he said, "Are you serious?" And I really thought that he was so angry at me even suggesting it. And I said, "Yes, please. I really haven't seen my family in a while, but I really need this ride." And he said, "Are you serious?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Man, it's okay. I'm going there anyway. Do you think I'm going to leave you here like till the middle of the night to find someone to drive you?" He was such a kind Lebanese cab driver.
Man, because many, you would have been left there.
That would be left there. And then I was in the car with him. He was a great guy. But the way I say the story all the time is that the cab drivers, they talk a lot. Like they will tell you stories about their grandchildren. They will tell you their entire family history. They will tell you about how they are the ones who are saving the economy in the world from crashing by making great advice, because they listen to the news all the time on the radio, how they should be presidents and prime ministers, and how if they even get the chance to be president and prime minister, the whole world would be more peaceful, everyone would be happy, people wouldn't have to worry about anything anymore. And that's what I love about cab drivers, is that they tell you all these stories because they meet a lot of people and they listen to the news. So you talk to them.
If you talk to them. So if people are listening, talk to your cab drivers. Keep going. Sorry.
That's right. Yeah. Try to open conversations, even with your Uber drivers.
Absolutely.
They don't like
Uber drivers will tell you everything.
That's right. Yeah. So I was with a guy for the time until he drove me. And then he was looking in the mirror and looking at me. And then he saw me and then he said, "Son, you look really worried. What's going on?" I said, "I really want to get my family out of Lebanon. We want to start a fresh life. We have been here for too long. And I don't see a light at the end of the tunnel." And then he said, "Why don't you immigrate?" And I said, "I tried 14 countries, but no one would accept us." He said, "Son, why don't you go to Canada?" And he was the guy, probably the first person that I heard at the time who would mention Canada for me as a destination. And then I said, "Why Canada?" He said that he lived in Montreal for 10 years of his life. And then he had to go back to Lebanon to take care of his sick father. It was the best time of his life, he would say. And then, he would drop me off. And then he said, "Son," as I opened my door, I said thank you to him. And then he said, "Son, you can go and apply to a scholarship at the Canadian Embassy. I heard on the news today they're opening up for some spots." And then I thanked him. I thought actually he didn't mean it. I thought that was even fake. I Googled online and I spent an entire weekend just applying, making the application, and I forgot about it. And then a week later, I would get a call from the Canadian Embassy saying, "Tareq, your application was excellent and you are invited for an interview at the Canadian Embassy." And that was surreal. That was the moment that I was living for. And that was the moment that I really wanted to even yell from my joy. You know, when you have these beautiful moments in your life when you just want to jump and you want to scream and you want to yell.
You want to tell the whole world.
And you want to tell the whole world, exactly. That was my moment. That was the time when I really wanted to just yell because I was so happy and I was waiting for it. I went and I did the interview. I didn't get the scholarship, but then they saw my application again and then they thought me and my family, we deserve a second shot in life and we deserve a second chance. And that's why they decided that they're going to give us a community sponsorship. They didn't tell us where. They just said, you're going to go to Canada, but your family has to be with you. You're not going to go alone. And then I went home. I told my parents about it. And the rest is history. It was just incredible how, our life was changed forever because of a 25 to 30 minute ride.
Just a cab ride saying, hey, why not Canada?
Because if I waited one more day for my application, it would have closed. The deadline I would have missed the deadline.
Sometimes life is just a funny thing, right? And, and for those, I guess, who probably have faith, it's always a divine intervention from somebody above who's watching out for us. Because sometimes you do wonder. I mean, it's funny. Your level of optimism is first off, it's awesome and it's highly contagious. But it always seems to resonate with me in the sense that those who have lost the most tend to be the most optimistic. And
That's
you're thinking, how can you possibly be optimistic?
That's
when
right.
When you've seen what man can do or humans can do to each other, and you end up with nothing, and you're not even in your own country. You're a refugee many times over. Like
that's right.
I
have a different analogy though, Kenny, about this. So I have a different analogy. Hear me out. So in 2020, in March, mid-March, the world started to close down. The pandemic was just peaking, and I had many friends in the country who were texting me and saying, "This is the end of the world. This is the apocalypse. We're never going to survive this." And they thought actually that this is the worst thing that can happen to them. Is to be locked down in their houses. That's what they thought.
Because in Canada, my friend, we haven't had a war. We've not seen what you've seen. So to us, that was like, holy shit, this is over.
Yes, exactly. So then I told them a simple comparison. In 2013, during the war that tore my immediate family apart, killed many of my family members, destroyed our lives and livelihoods. With all of this losses, in addition to that loss, we were forced to leave our homes and we were forced to lose everything.
Right.
In 2020, when the pandemic started, we were asked to stay in our homes and we were asked to stay safe. And then I thought to myself, I will take the second. I will take 1 million pandemics over living one day in a war.
Absolutely.
Full stop. And I believe that life is all about perspective. Life is all about what angle are we looking at the challenge from. And from there, to be honest, the perspective became everything to me. And that's why you need to be. People are always looking for sources of joy. There's a lot of upsetting news in the world, right? So you don't need complainers around you. You need people who give you light, who make
give you energy, right? They give you something to shoot for, something to hope about. And there are a lot of people struggling on this planet. There's a lot of people struggling in our own country, right? But you do have to try to find. You have to find a path that's got a light at the end of it. Like you kind of really do need to search for that because I guess it's there. I mean, like you said,
Absolutely.
During the pandemic, our biggest problem was we can't get toilet paper because people are hoarding toilet paper.
That's right.
And when you look at the perspective, you're thinking, these people didn't have food, and not because the store was closed and you can get it tomorrow. And quite frankly, you already have a house full of food anyway, so you're not gonna starve. As opposed to people who are getting bombed, the grocery store is gone, not closed, gone. You gotta, but it's hard. Perspective that you're from a different world now. You hit sort of, like you said at the beginning, rock bottom. You had a whole different perspective on how bad things can be, but you also have a perspective on how good things can be. Most of us, especially in the West world here, specifically in this continent, what wars has anybody gone through that happened here? We've gone to war. I get
That's right. Yeah.
But really, we haven't had the conflict. Morning, Dan. We haven't had the conflict of war on our homeland. And yet we seem to sometimes, like when you watch the news now, you listen to people thinking, I think you need to talk to a few more people, guys. Like I really think what you're complaining about is valid because it's your world, and I understand that. But you might want to pull it up a little bit. We're blessed to be here.
Absolutely.
You chose it. I'm lucky. Thank God my parents chose this country ultimately.
That's right. Yeah. Because so many second generation, third generation would lose it, and that's why we did what we did. So one of the best advice that I got actually is document your own journey. That's why we did the book. That's why we did the movie. And I really hope every newcomer would be able to document their journey in the ways that they see fit. So many people don't like to be in front of cameras, or they write books. But find the best ways to do it, whether in your own notes, write a notebook, a diary, to your own story.
Come on a podcast.
With Kenny and Phil.
It's a verbal document. And we do this kind of Phil and I do this though, Tareq, is because we actually just love the story. Yeah. We always love to hear how, like most, our podcast is obviously business focused. And you can tell, like, when people listen to this podcast, we really talk no business. Just so we all know, Tareq's family actually owns a chocolate company.
That's right.
There's a chocolate here in Syria. They have a chocolate company. They are doing commerce.
Okay, back to entrepreneurship then. Yes, quickly.
He is paying his taxes. Yes, he's contributing financially to the country, amongst a million other things. They have a business. It's a going concern. They're doing really well.
That's great. That's right. Yeah.
That's our stories. We love the story, but we usually dig in. Like, where did you come from? Why did you come here? How did you start this? Like, where did the idea come from? Because that, to me, that's the rest of the shit is really, a lot of it's just bullshit. It doesn't matter. But tapping into who the person is and why the person ticks. If we spent a little more time, and always over food, right? Because the Italian Russian thing's the same. Food is everything, man. Like, especially Italian side. Right. Food is everything. And the best things in life happen typically on a dinner table or around food. That's typically where the most fun happens. That's arguments too, typically, but
and that's when people actually are more receptive to conversations and more receptive to those who don't share a lot with them. But then once you start eating together, I think you become families in different ways.
But to learn something.
100%. And that's why I think the most successful business meetings that I've ever had was actually over a lunch or dinner. That's the best way actually to do business.
I totally agree.
I love that. So for sure, chocolate also helps. Desserts also help.
Oh, chocolate. No, seriously, that gets everything.
But just on the business side, just briefly there, which is really important to the people who listen to this podcast, is entrepreneurship is not about making money. It's about making an impact. It's really about making a difference. And we are trying to use our platform as much as we can to change as many lives as we can.
Right.
So to those who are listening, please check our piece on our society, because we do a lot of work that I believe it is good work. But I believe we are really doing our best to change the lives of many refugees who are landing in the country throughout our partnership with TENS Partnership for Refugees, or Refugee Hub, or many other folks who are working in that field, towards our partnership with the Canadian Mental Health Association, with Trans Canada Trail to support the trails in the country, to Indigenous people, especially everywhere here in Mi'kma'ki, talking about our partnership with PANS, especially in Baknake. So there is a lot of work that we're trying to do to make peace as wholesome and comprehensive as possible, because peace cannot be taken into little pieces, and it should be really looked at from a holistic approach.
Yes.
And I really hope we will make everyone feel that they belong here. I really hope that at a time when there was, like, a few years ago in 2022, when everyone was talking about the discoveries at residential schools, for example, right? And people were talking about it at the whole year, and then everything just basically got silent. No one is talking about. When was the last time you heard about residential schools in the news? Probably a year ago, or
probably a year
and a half ago. Yeah, exactly. It just becomes trends.
Yeah,
we want to make sure people's stories are not trends. We want to make sure that people's stories are taken into consideration. And I know people are busy with their own lives, but I really hope the things that can matter to us the most is that inclusion is powerful, and we want to make sure that everyone's story is being heard You don't have to be a refugee to have a story worth of telling. You don't have to be.
Everybody's got a story to tell.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody. You were born here or born away. Your parents have been here forever, or they just immigrated. Everyone has to really share their own stories, and that's what actually helped us the most. Whether you are an entrepreneur or not, whatever the path you want to take in life, you want to be an astronaut, you want to be an entrepreneur, a chocolate maker, or a podcaster. It doesn't really matter. What matters to me is we take it from the lens of empathy and compassion, and try to build on people's strength and resolve and work on the weaknesses. And that's what I love the most about being an entrepreneur, to be honest, is that entrepreneur's job in the first actually priority is it's people's jobs. It's about how do you make sure everyone's vision come to life, and you make sure you are taking the best out of everyone, work on their weaknesses, tell them they are very good at this, but they can work on this, but never giving up on people is very important.
Yeah.
If you are an entrepreneur, you never give up on anyone. And I think we talk about many companies when they have these mass layoffs. They talk about budget cuts. They talk about performance of anyone. I truly believe that no one should be fired from a job because of performance issues. Everyone is trainable. It's not about being a bad employee. It's about having a bad manager or someone who is not willing to train you.
Typically, it is that side. There are people out there that, for whatever reason, can't find a groove, or probably really shouldn't be working in probably the jobs they're working in. Not to say they don't have skills that could go elsewhere. And sometimes a movement of a person is not the worst thing for them because they're probably not in the right spot.
100%.
But typically, most bad employees are a result of bad management, bad teachers, etc.
And that's why it all starts with people. It starts with people. We talked about immigration. We talked about people. We talked about entrepreneurship, and that's, I think, that's one of the most powerful things about the journey like ours. Is hopefully people will find some relevance in what they live through in their day-to-day life. Hopefully, no one will have to live through a war, but unfortunately, the world is still burning in wars that seems like never ending.
Yeah.
So I really hope that we can open eyes and we can open hearts to.
I hope so
folks
too.
Who are,
what was the society called? What was the web? If someone wants to look up the society, what's the web page?
It is on our. It's connected to the Peace by Chocolate website. The society it is called the Peace on Earth Society.
Peace on Earth Society. Phil, he lost the call. He couldn't get back on, which is too bad for Phil. So I got you all to myself, which I'm quite happy about. So
right on. Yes.
Phil's lost, my win. If people want to get a hold of you, or if people want to talk to you, no phone numbers. What's the best way for them to find you? Instagram, through the webpage, LinkedIn?
The webpage, actually, I have a website. So it is TareqHadhad.com. It's TAREQ Hadhad HADHAD.com. And there's just like a form there, so they can get a hold of me or my team. I'm on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn actually is one of my most active channels. So they can always reach out to me there too.
Fantastic. You, my friend, were an absolute treat to talk to. We've talked to you twice. For me personally, I really, and I mean this with all my heart, I really, there's something about you. I really feel connected to you. I really enjoy talking to you. I hope I get to meet you in person. Would love to sit down and have a meal with you, and just chat.
Let's do it.
Absolute treat.
My pleasure. Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah,
it's always an honor to talk to you and to Phil, and similar feelings. I really hope we can get together in person as well, and just break some bread, or have some chocolate. Doesn't matter what we eat, as long as
you're never going to get me to say no to good chocolate.
That's right. Yeah.
I'm not a big milk chocolate fan. I love dark chocolate.
That's why we're in this business, Kenny. That's why we're in this business. No one can say no.
All over it, my friend. I really do appreciate it. Thanks for coming on the second time, and we'll catch up soon.
Absolutely. Take care.
Thanks. Take care.